welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. So we've got two fantastic guests with us this morning, Tim Wright and Craig Huddleston from Zoas. How are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Fantastic. And as always, my trusty sidekick, how you doing, Dr. G?
Really good, thank you. I'm so excited for this one. I've been wanting to get the guys on for ages, you know that.
Absolutely. You've been telling me some amazing stuff about these two, so hopefully they live up to their expectations. So
no pressure, no pressure.
No pressure at all.
It was the rider. The rider was the constraints, the blue M&Ms.
Absolutely. Now, just a quick one, guys, because obviously I know a lot about you from Glenda. I obviously never met you here before, but some of our listeners may not know who you guys are either. So do you want to give us a quick rundown in terms of who you guys are individually and then sort of how Zoas came about?
Sure. Do you want me to go first, Ryan?
Absolutely. Whoever fancies it.
Okay, cool. I'll go first. Yeah, Tim Wright. I'll do the short story. Craig loves the short story. How long's the podcast?
I'm sure the listeners will appreciate the short one.
We'll do the short story. I come from Australia, actually, so from Sydney, Australia. So I did my undergraduate physio degree out there and played rugby, actually, until I got injured and retired when I was 24. And yeah, came over here traveling, actually, and just did some physio within the NHS locuming until I got an opportunity to do some elite sport physio back into the sort of arena where I'd played footy before. And I was a physio at London Irish, and then I got into cricket actually at Surrey at the Oval and down in Sussex on the south coast. So I spent 3 or 4 years down in the mighty Brighton and Hove, and then had an opportunity then to get out of elite sport. Got a bit burnt out actually by a couple of the international players who wanted sort of 24/7 physio continuously. So I decided to step away from elite sport, and I got an opportunity to set up a business where we did on-site physio within Deutsche Bank in London, City of London, and then built that business that was it was the first sort of on-site physio within corporate. So corporates could go to physiotherapy internally in their building, so they didn't have to go external. And we built that up successfully. And then I got acquired by Sona, or actually Nuffield Health, I should say. It was Sona before that, and then Nuffield Health, and then grew that to a 30, 40 strong corporate business. And then sort of pivoted my career from a clinician into business. So I did an MBA and a Master of International Finance. And then I did consultancy actually in the world of sort of insurance rehab, return to work, getting people back to work if we could, or assessing their abilities to return to work. And did that with a number of reinsurers and insurers. So it built up a nice network there. And then and progressively did other consultancy work with people like the FA and Spire Healthcare, big hospital group, always staying in my lane, which is healthcare. Bit more passionate about preventative healthcare, truth be known. And then that led me to fall into digital health about sort of 13, 14, 15 years ago with a business called First Beat Technologies. And actually, they're still one of Zoas's retained clients now, so that's a long-standing contract that we've had. Met Craig on my travels for my sins when I was working at a business called Live Smart, doing pathology testing, digital pathology. And yeah, really liked him as a bloke, as values and as a mate, really. I classify him as a good mate. And then, he just, at the beginning of the pandemic, actually said, have you thought about sort of scaling this into a digital health and wellness sales and partnership consultancy? And that's kind of where we started, really, from a scalability point of view. And that's kind of where the story is as today. Now we're sort of representing 12 to 13 digital health and wellness businesses on a UK and international basis. Glenda has been a great addition to the team. Met about 2 years ago, Glenda, wasn't it?
Yeah,
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Actually, it was even before that. We were sort of chatting on LinkedIn.
A couple of years ago. And then I've been working with you guys now for over a year.
Yeah. And I think what resonates is we want to have a bit of fun. We love working with the companies that we work with, kicking goals, of course, because we need to do partnerships and bring in the revenue. But we're all very, very transparent and have fun on the journey. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. Team of about 7 to 8 consultants or associates, I should say, that deliver for those clients. Yeah, that's it. That's the short story. Do you want the long one?
Wow. No. We'll come back for version 2 for the long one. I think too.
He's bringing out a book. He's bringing out a book. But yeah, nice to meet you guys. Just a quick one, just to space of time. But my background is in social care, health and social care, so very much around public health management. I guess I became quite disillusioned by the want was there to make public change within their health, but the will and the actual real wholesale change that is required wasn't. So I guess I then pivoted into the business that Tim alluded to, Live Smart. I felt that I would have my whole career has been based on wanting to have better health outcomes for individuals. So I felt I could do that more easily, not that I'm lazy, but more efficient with my time, I guess. But within the corporate health space, so pathology, lifestyle assessment, and I guess within that process was really acutely aware that to solve this quite difficult selling, you have to have a fleet of solution around you, because you're within a consultancy view or a consultancy sell. You have to then kind of surround yourself with best-in-class solutions, and I guess that's what we've done, is really kind of set out on a quest to make purchasers' lives easier by doing the due diligence first, building up the trust, building up the relationship, and then obviously taking that portfolio of different solutions to that conversation, and hopefully, obviously, crossing the line into a successful kind of implementation and sale thereafter. So yeah, so that's the short version introduction of myself.
Thank you, guys. Just to set a little bit of context, when you look at, the last couple of years, we know what happened, so we'll not discuss it in any detail because we're past it. But in that time where we had the challenge where the physical clubs, the fitness industry's clubs were all closed, a lot of club owners dived in to do a bit of digital, And what was a really interesting story in our sector was the Peloton story, because everybody seen the valuation go through the roof. And then we all seen what happened when we all got the bricks and mortar back open, that it dived a lot. So everybody were then saying, oh, we don't need digital as much because bricks and mortar's here to stay. We're all back in the clubs. But we know that that's only a tiny bit of the story. So for all the club owners that are out there that will be listening to this, as guys who really understand like the benefit of integrating digital to a bricks and mortar solution, what would you say is the elevator pitch to a fitness sector club owner? Putting you on the spot there, guys.
Good question, Craig.
That number 84 bus just right there. No, I guess for me it's the scalability, asking the digital to do some of their heavy lifting, so therefore you can reach a wider audience. I still believe of a blend of human and digital, though. I think the key part of it is digital only gets you somewhere. We all love our phones, but obviously that's my camera, my torch on. But the key part of it is the human side and how we can kind of blend a human personal trainers in the fitness space with digital. I think that's for me the kind of sweet spot. So I guess, it's the scalability, the accessibility, and to reach those hard to reach individuals that may not come to your gym. So your PT will never be able to kind of enrich their lives. So how you can engage with that audience, I think, as well. What's your thoughts on that, Tim?
Yeah, I thought that was a really good answer. The fitness sector is not as I'm not as close to the fitness industry sector as I have done some work with Virgin Active, and I always was wondering, and it's a good case study actually, because we tried to set up physiotherapy within Virgin Active, and we couldn't quite. It was doing quite well, but it wasn't hitting the heights of sort of PT and membership and stuff like that, mainly because the cost of the physios was quite expensive compared to the bricks and mortar, so the outgoing costs. So knowing what we knew now, if we had a digital solution in that space, that would have been the ideal fit. That would have really worked. So I think it's about how they can perhaps bring in other services that are more expensive but are digitized to add value to their core offering. So I think it has to augment the value proposition of what they have. I think everything what Craig said is really resonated with me, but I think, you could bring in physio, health assessments, all sorts of different things where you could create other revenue streams without building a huge staff costs.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they could be really smart about doing things and becoming more of a wellness center rather than just a pure fitness center based on memberships. That's what
a lot of the leisure centres are trying to do now, Tim. They're moving away from this fitness centre element. I guess for them it's a little bit different because they are community centres, aren't they? Whereas a fitness club, Virgin Active, David Lord, they generally are just for their members. Do they really have a community interest as such? Potentially not really. It's more about their profit, isn't it? Bottom line profit, as much as they'll say. Whereas leisure centre does. So they've moved very much into the wellness side. What is interesting with this though, Tim? Because I know you guys don't do a huge amount with leisure clubs or gyms as such, but the wellness market is obviously growing significantly. Everybody understands where we want to go. The government's putting very little behind it for what. But some bizarre reason. But where do you think necessarily that digital then fits into this wider scope? Obviously, from the corporate to the everything else we've got in society, because gyms really 15%, so it's quite a small element in the whole thing. I think Sport England came out with a report that 60% of the population are exercising for 150 minutes a week. So it's not as if people aren't training, exercising and getting there. It's just not in gyms to the level that we want it. So where do you think you guys fit in from a digital perspective for the society as such? How do you think that's going to grow and impact it across the board?
It's a really good question, actually. It's something that all digital solutions are trying to get engagement with. So there's that sort of 15%, like you said, that go to the gym. There's that 15% will never do anything. It's that huge middle ground.
Absolutely.
How do you gain engagement in that? I think it's simplicity is key. So making it easy for them. So we represent a digital physio solution, which is almost like the front door of the physio journey. It's done through your phone. It's a chatbot, but it will take you into the right pathway. That has been incredibly successful from an engagement and completion rate point of view, right through the NHS, right through private, right through insurers. So it's really getting some traction in that middle ground. I think it's how easy is it for them to use and where does it take them? So I call it clicks to bricks. So they're the ones that seem to be winning at the moment, the ones that are, a virtual GP that can also take you into a facility if needed. So you've got
that's where Vitality did really well. I do a bit of work with Vitality and they've done really well with their virtual GP. It became a USP, and now you find Aviva and all the others have followed suit. So I can imagine how well that physio thing app has done.
Yeah, but interesting on the VGP world, a lot have hemorrhaged during COVID because their commercial models are based around utilization. And,
right.
And no one expected the pandemic to come, and we didn't foresee it. But their commercials were hit hard because they were expecting low utilization, but that pushed them. So their costs went up considerably. So a couple have fallen away by the wayside.
Oh, okay.
And what you're seeing is the emergence of ones like Lloyd's Online GP that's linked with the pharmacy. So again, it's got that virtual element and the bricks and mortar element. So I think that's going to be the trend that's going to happen for the next 12 to 24 months, where we'll see more of that. Percy Healthcare, cancer front door into a team looking after you. So it's that hybrid between clicks, bricks, or human aspect as well.
I just wanted to add, because obviously you guys are all very aware, and the listeners, to be fair, that I had bricks and mortar, but I also had a digital product. And when I look back on my digital journey, it was so difficult to keep producing content. Costs are so expensive. To have that infrastructure in a bricks and mortar club is so difficult, not just to implement, but also then maintain. And I was just thinking, while I've been working with the guys, Ryan from Zoas, it's been so fascinating to see some of these either best-in-class solutions or best overall apps. I do really genuinely see the future, that you'll walk into a fitness club in the future and they'll give you bundle options to add things onto your membership. I can see that coming. I really can. I think the companies out there that can say we'll add, an MSK solution or cancer support onto your membership, I think are going to do really, really well. And I think it really resonates with Tim's point about these digital solutions can be a serious value add. And especially when we see scale, you know, we can really get the price per user to really cost-effective pricing, you know. I don't know what you think, Ryan, about the clubs out there that are still trying to do it themselves. It's a difficult.
Absolutely, I think it needs professionals like these guys. And I guess just on that point, what's do you guys find there's a barrier between, because obviously now we've moved back to the brick and mortar clubs and the brick and mortar businesses. I mean, obviously you guys do a lot of work in corporates as well. Yeah. Do you see there's any barriers, or do you think they've sort of dropped and people are more open to looking at digital options these days?
I think obviously from the pandemic, I could only speak from the eyes that I see, which is obviously mainly from the corporate perspective. Yeah. But I guess the key part of what my learnings are is through the pandemic, lots was afforded to employees. You know, let's just chuck anything at an individual. And I think obviously what our learnings are post now, the engagement rates were relatively high, I guess, but still low considering the total population, I guess. I think obviously fast forward to this point, and we're fortunate to have a lot of relationships with a lot of leading kind of health and wellbeing kind of heads of different, you know, big organizations, and they're struggling to get some board spend against this because of the overall engagement through the pandemic, I guess. So I guess the key part of it is trying to work out how we can support individuals to engage with the digital solution. And
just out of that, Craig, what sort of uptake would you take? So, I mean, obviously you guys work with some amazing companies. Obviously you guys can name, because I don't know who you want to name or not, but you guys work with some amazing companies. When you go into businesses and when you're trying to sell these out to different organizations, what sort of uptake do you guys expect? So if you went into a corporate, what would you say? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Or do you guys go, really, to make this viable for this spend, it's a 50% uptake? What sort of things do you guys look at, or the KPIs that you guys put in place?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a difficult one, and I guess if we look at it from a physical activity perspective, you know, we're working with a company called True Connect. So True Connect are looking at kind of, you know, very best in class digital solution around not only physical activity, but also overall wellness, recipes. So it gives that holistic view. I mean, you know, realistically, you know, a normal solution, probably you would attract between a 5 to 20% engagement within that period. Yeah. Obviously, you have to find a hook for each individual. Now, in a corporate, everyone's different. You know, aesthetically, if they see marketing material with someone like Tim on there, they would probably, you know, with 6 packs and everything like that, they would probably be, you know, maybe turned off from that, and obviously
turned off. What did you say? Turned on, you mean? Well, high engagement.
So the key part of it is, you know, you have to find a hook for each person. You know, if we just had a specific physical activity solution that had, you know, 6 packs and people doing, you know, HIIT workouts, CrossFit and everything, probably the people that you're trying to attract into an overall corporate solution would probably be turned off. And they're the people that are at most risk to the business from a return on investment perspective. So that's why we talk about a best overall, is because you have to find routes in for all parties of all scales. So yeah, it is a difficult one. That's where potentially human intervention comes into the piece.
I was going to say that, because it is very much, I mean, selling an app, obviously, as good as it may be, there's always going to be that barrier to go, this is what it gives you. So somewhere in there, I guess there's got to be an intervention from a person to say, this is why.
Ryan, what's super interesting for the clubs, though, here, that I feel, being a previous club owner myself, is we don't do a great job of penetrating the corporate market, and corporates need whole population solutions. And even if we took the worst penetration and engagement rate of, say, 5%, even at 5% in a big organization, when you do draw the numbers out of that and how much it's cost per head and the total cost versus stopping someone from being off with absenteeism, or even the population showing up with presenteeism, the lights are on but nobody's home, there is definitely a return on the investment. And what I think is really exciting for fitness clubs is I do think digital would be a way that they could connect to the corporate market as a new income stream that we don't do well in the fitness bricks and mortar business right now. It never fails to surprise me that corporates go to someone like my company for a wellbeing solution when they could be going to their local fitness club and building that real relationship. Now, Ryan, no corporates are going to give you £500, £600, £700 a year per person to go to your gym, but they absolutely might buy into your white labeled app that could be a global app that gets that first point of contact and building those touch points to then get them into the club. And I do think that's an income opportunity there that the fitness industry need to explore and try and tap into that corporate market more.
Absolutely. And how would Zoas work with that, guys? How do you guys fit into that? Working with a club to work with corporate. Is that something you guys do at the moment?
Who wants to take that? Craig?
So I suppose the simple answer is yes. I mean, so we work. Obviously, we have consultants in different lanes with different expertise. Obviously, from a fitness club owner perspective, obviously we're fortunate to have Dr. G that's really kind of a shining light within the industry. But I guess the key part of it is how we can kind of hunker down within those areas to reach more people and I suppose highlight the art of the possible. I guess from my learnings within the fitness industry, having been, and I'm sure we'll touch upon it around some stories from Ursa, Glenda, and Fibo recently that I think club owners are used to buying dumbbells and treadmills and bits like that. But I guess it's just kind of slowly. And I note, and you'll obviously be able to tell us this more so, but you can see from those sorts of shows, there is a will to get into a bit more wellness, but I guess it's kind of, it would just take one big player, a big gym chain to really chuck their whole being into it rather than just a little toe. And I guess, the definition of what wellness is within your industry, I think is still up for grabs. Is it a bed that someone lies in within the gym, or is it something that some techniques and support around mindfulness or meditation at home, which will help them to engage within the gym? And I guess that's someone like Glenda is, as I said, the shining beacon within that, and I guess we as kind of Zoas, we're obviously supporting, gyms, insurers, corporates to kind of tread that difficult path, because there's a lot out there. And I guess it's for us to really support purchasers to hone it.
All I was going to say, it'll take a transformational shift, because Glenda, the industry, when I look at stakeholders within corporate health, there's insurers, there's employee benefits, there's EAPs. Fitness centers doesn't appear in that list of key stakeholders. It might through a gym pass or a corporate or something like that get discounts, but they see it very much as fitness only. So and being around for as long as I am, although obviously I look young for my age, is that fitness industry has been talking about wellness for a long time. Decades, maybe longer. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Glenda, you're probably better, but I scratch my head around this, because there's just so much resistance. I guess it's the commercial model that doesn't change. Because it's so driven by P&L.
There's some watershed moments going on at the minute, and we constantly say this to our listeners. There is absolutely nothing wrong with just putting your stall out and saying you're fitness only. If you do that beautifully and you've got a really seamless member journey, fill your boots. But if you actually are going out there to tell your customer that you change their entire holistic well-being, you cannot do that with a fitness only solution. You're actually giving a false claim. Now, we're also not saying that you can then have the panacea to all your problems with just a digital solution. But I'm a great believer, as long as the numbers stack up you're trying to build out your resources as much as you can to do as much as you can with what you've got. And that's where I think digital's got a contribution. And I was really going to ask you, Tim, if you were, thinking about our industry, could you give us a good working example of a brand that is within our sector and how it potentially helps them either drive value to the member or drive a new income stream? I mean, one that I did think about was First Beat, because you might tell the listeners more, but Ryan and I chat all the time about the personal training side of the fitness business. And actually, now it's actually going back the way in some regard, because the fitness owners think it makes no money. They think, oh, well, we need it, but we just sort of ignore it. We take the rents off these guys and then just pretend it doesn't exist because it doesn't drive a lot of money. So I just thought, what would be a good working example that you could give us that would support value add and potentially driving some more income?
Oh, really good question. Surprised about that. I mean, I guess PT is modeled differently with different gym chains. I remember at Virgin Active, it was a key P&L line, and they made some huge money on the personal training side, led by a really charismatic individual who I thought did a really good job in terms of building his team. But just for me, they were the key to unlocking more around health coaching and weight management. And, if they broaden their skill sets, how powerful that would be in other areas of revenue, including, you're talking about First Beat, a little device that looks at heart rate variability, but it's very much around health coaching, behavior change, stress and resilience, looking at giving some objective measurements. How using tools like that to add value as not just a PT, but a health coach takes you into a different, I think, opens you up to so much more of a market. So changing from a PT to a health coach could be transformational for a health club, I would think. I haven't seen it because I'm not so close to it, but I would. But again, when we have tried to talk to big PT chains, there's a little resistance towards that because it's outside their, what they call it, scope of practice. But it doesn't take much, a little bit of CPD and a bit of training, and they'd be there.
Well, I'm banging the drum, guys, but this is where I see a paradigm shift coming. I really do. I mean, if you look at the boutique model, Ryan, who are all out to charge premium pricing, they have to have that added value, and they really need to make a difference in people's results, even more so than our sweatbox, cheap frills clubs that is literally just you rent a treadmill for an hour. The boutique clubs, it's about experience and it's about driving results. And I think if we've got tools at our disposal that we can work the numbers commercially, it's got to be a serious proposition for the future. Surely, right?
Well, quite a few of them have started looking at the DNA stuff. So I think from a boutique side of it, I think there is interest there. It's I guess the key is getting the likes of you guys into that arena, isn't it? You know what I mean? You guys have the access to the technology. You've got all the new companies coming forward. Yeah. You guys are probably seeing some amazing tech coming through. I mean, I speak to some of the guys like Andy Hall and people like that who've been working in the metaverse space, which I still don't fully understand. That's a whole.
Ryan, I was hoping you were going to educate me about that.
No, I'm afraid not. I'll put you in touch with Andy. But whether there's growth in that or not, the great thing is there's movement in different areas and making people think differently. I still think, and they haven't grasped it yet, but I still think VR has a huge potential in fitness and wellness, just because of what it's a different escape model. It's a different way of doing something. But until we can get people to, well, there's quite a few things that need to change with the VR to make it work, and stop making them into like Disney games that they're doing, and make it actually like a proper exercise. And we might get there, but I think there's so much going on. And like I say, with what you guys do for a living, you guys must see so many. I can imagine you turn away as many as you accept.
Yeah, I think, Ryan, you hit the nail on the head. We do see a lot. We do turn away a lot because we've got to make sure, and that's why Dr. G's been brilliant on the feasibility side. We do quite a bit of feasibility, looking at product market fit, looking at is this, we've seen a lot of digital health monies burn a lot of cash, investors' cash, get it wrong time after time, and then they run out of cash. and that happened a lot during the pandemic. And we've been involved with a few that have run out of cash. And the feasibility work is so important because a lot of them think they build it and they think it's going to sell. It's a simplistic model, but it's
Isn't it something like 70,000 fitness apps a year get created? It's something.
I think during the pandemic it was some astronomical.
Yeah,
amount.
there was 90,000 mental health apps emerged just during the pandemic alone. There's over 500,000 apps right now live in the app.
So that's an interesting one then. If there's that many coming out, what do you guys look for to go, that's gone?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, they've got to have a defined USP, a really defined USP. Look at a company called With You, a really successful British business that are doing it based on audio only. Yes, they've got a what do you call it?
Avatar
that you can look at through your phone. But in essence, I live in the country, no gym near me. I can plug it into my ears. I go for a walk to run, and I'm getting coached to that. Now, for me, they've really hooked onto their USP and driven a business very successfully. True Connect, another great British business as well. Why? How does that work? Because of content, flexibility, being able to pick and choose with B2B sales, what people want because they've got pretty much everything under the roof. I think you've got to be either best in class USP or best platform per se, and it's hard to get that. But something has to stand out and it's got to be monetized and a commercial model that works because the commercial model in this financial environment needs to work and be flexible as well.
Yeah.
But peeling back to the original question, which what would clubs do? I'd say keep it simple. Look at where MSK, digital physio, I think sits beautifully next to
absolutely.
PTs, next to gyms, because in essence you could roll something out for a whole of your membership or even extension, and that could be something where it's revenue generating, but there's no staff costs. Then health assessments, like you're saying, Ryan, DNA, Health Path Pro that does bowel analysis, do you know what I mean, and gut analysis through to heart rate variability with first beat. If you've got skill sets all around this, you're becoming a really your scope of practice is quite wide. You're becoming a preventative health coach that's an expert around preventative health care. And
are these things expensive to put into place? I guess as a club owner, you're looking at it going, I don't want to do that. I mean, DNA test to buy in generally £75 to £100, just the cost. Obviously, you pass that on, but there's cost associated. So I guess a lot of the clubs looking and go, that's going to be too expensive. Is that the case? Is it something that easy and practical to put into the business?
I think there's probably there's flexibility in models and finding the right model that works for you as a club owner or a business owner. You can make it work. Yes, some do require payments up front or as a reseller arrangement, but I think in this market, in this time, you could scrutinize over a commercial model that works better for you. I don't know. That's what I would say to that.
Yeah.
Craig, I was going to actually ask just an extension to that question. What would you give as the top pieces of advice for a club owner who is looking at digital health solutions? Now, the one that I think, weirdly, even although there are some incredible diversification ideas like Tim's point there about, digital physio or heart variability, but the average club owner will probably want to add content so that there's no walls of the club. And I love that concept, no walls. And do you remember the guy that was on a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, Richard and Bobby.
Weren't they fantastic about that concept of the club should have no walls? And if we're scared of digital, that's going to bring walls up because it's got to be a seamless member experience and people are now expecting it 24/7. So the one that I think fitness clubs are really, the one that would be the least barrier to entry would be fitness content that supplements what they've been doing in the club. So what tips would you give a club owner of what's the key things you should be looking out for if you are considering an app, if they don't come and speak to us first?
Well, I would always suggest come and speak to us first. That would be my overarching tip.
Good idea.
We see a lot of individuals and companies that almost go outside their lane. And I guess what I mean by that is is stick to what you're good at, which, you know, if you're a gym owner, you're used to the bricks and mortar. So producing content, not necessarily on week one, but then think about 6 months down the road where you're having to get refreshed content time and time again. That then obviously diverts you from what you're good at, which is running your gym. So I guess my suggestion would be is kind of, and I don't know where I picked this phrase up, but kind of stronger together. And I guess the key part of it is how you can partner up with someone. And we have some ideas on who you should clearly partner up with, but let's stick within your lane. So you run a gym chain. Okay, brilliant. But you're really good at that. How can a partnership work that you actually have an embedded solution that with a content provider that has, you know, some fantastic content that will drive user engagement, but then also how can the partnership work for both parties? And I think that's the key part of any good partnership. It has to work for both parties. And I guess, you know, there is some solutions out there that are willing and wanting to listen to some challenges. You know, we forever bring in challenges to our suppliers to say, this is the problem, how have you got a solution that will be able to fix that? I guess an example is, again, looking at True Connect, is they were challenged to build a gym booking solution. And I guess, of course, the solution could have gone, we don't do that. We could have an open API. But I guess, you know, a good kind of player would actually go, is it possible? And with True Connect, they have an amazing kind of dev team that, in essence, built a gym bookings system. So you can go on to the solution, or, you know, see what apps, kind of groups and sessions are happening. So instead of going from app to app to app, and I guess that's, again, a concern, is the user journey and the pathway. So if you have a solution that is not particularly integrated, or the pathway is quite difficult to navigate, that's, again, a problem, and that you'll get turned off by that as a user.
That's a really important point, Craig, about, you know, that seamless, not feeling like you're going to 5 or 6 providers, you know, that being housed. And also that when you mentioned, you know, that flexibility about the white label option, you know, our club owners out there are very protective about their brands, and so should they. You know, they've built their brand, and, you know, that's been based around spending a lot of time, money and commitment and passion. And I think it's great that there are providers out there that can do a white labeled offering there to sit and be complementary to their brand. Really good advice. I guess what I wanted to just ask, Tim, I'll put this one to you, and before we, you know, round up, I guess, you know, with the blue sky thinking, because I know that you are very instrumental in this sector, and you very much have your finger on the pulse, both you and Craig. What do you think the future of digital health looks like?
Good question.
We ask great questions on here.
I mean, it sounds surprised at the good question.
I'm looking at the sky. I'm looking for some inspiration.
I noticed that.
Blue sky thinking. I think I'm going to talk about the immediate future. I think the immediate future where ones are going to win is do they solve a problem? So, you know, a lot of mine are still into the insurance. So, you know, quick case study, you know, does it reduce claims cost? Does it improve member engagement? Does it sell more policies? It's things like that where it has to have an effect and or it has a significant added value. So the future for me in the next couple of years is, again, I'll talk about that clicks to bricks. So a hybrid approach is what I see winning in the next couple of years. You know, Headspace is a great example, a client we represent as well. So Headspace does, you know, just did meditation and mindfulness only. Brilliantly. That was staying in their lane. But they did an acquisition, as you were, was it a year or 2 years ago, with Ginger in the US on coaching, you know, to broaden it from an app only into coaching into people. So that's a great example of a business that knows where the future is going. And for me, that's where I think where you know, if I was building an app today, it was to, you know, tick those boxes. Does it solve a problem? Does it reduce costs? Does it add value? You know, etc. And also, does it have some escalation point, or does it take you to somewhere? People don't seem to be just wanting to stay in an app only environment. They want to be knowing where to go next. You know, we know Peppy, don't we? And you know, that there's a great lot of stuff about Peppy and women's health. Amazing success story again. But there was some discussion about, well, where do I go next? Where do I get my HRT? Where do I go after this? Please someone help me. So that's where I see digital going in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant insight. What about you, Craig? Anything you want to add there?
No, I think Tim's covered a lot of the. I guess we and I class myself as attending URSA and FIBO as we being in the fitness industry. We know we need to reach a wider audience. So we talked about percentage. 15%. There's a lot of people out there that are crying out to become more active. Yeah. And I guess as an industry, we need to find ways in which we can, appeal to those individuals. Yeah. There was a study out of Australia, which Tim kind of showed me last week, which is around mental health. So mental health around physical activity actually is so much more. They've done a study
1.3 times more, 1.2 times more effective than counselling and meditation.
Yeah, I can believe medication. That. It's like Tony Robbins, where movement goes, energy flows, right? Yeah. Always been my number one mantra.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one then, Craig, because obviously you've just been to URSA and obviously FIBO. And I guess originally you guys come from more the medical insurance side and that sort of. So you're quite uniquely sort of sat outside, but sort of working inside. Where would you say that we're sort of going wrong in the sense of we've got this huge opportunity as an industry to be involved in all of this wellness and growth and whatever, and to increase that 15%. Sat outside. And where do you think? I mean, you don't have to be too cutting, I guess. But where do you think we go wrong as an industry to sort of go? Well, we should be that, but actually we're just there.
I guess for me, having been to both shows, there's lots of aspirationally very fit people on there. So six packs and muscles coming out of here, there, and everywhere.
They didn't invite me, Craig.
No, you weren't on the list.
You're intimidating, Tim, even to them.
The first was there. So I guess people can't relate. So people can't relate to what they see, and I guess Parkrun is a great example where what they're looking to do is basic as it is just getting people active. Getting people active and getting them on the journey. We're all kind of difficult. We've all got work commitments, family commitments, and finding time to go to a gym is difficult. And I am no different than surely a lot of people, which is they use any excuse why not to go to a gym. And I guess it's just really kind of looking at the Joe Blogs out there and saying, how can I work with you rather than Mr. CrossFit or Mr. Fit that runs marathons. So is how we can look at probably the average Joe Blogs on the street and go, how can I find a solution to engage you?
You get me thinking, Craig, because one massive market, and it's another day for another story, but our older adult market is where they've got more disposable income. They've got more time. Time's always the easy excuse to say I can't go to the gym because I've no time, so I want to cancel my membership. And we've not really driven that part of the sector at all. I mean, I really hope that in the next 3 years we're going to see an older adult chain emerge. The only thing I would
There's
say,
apparently one coming from Australia into the UK.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
What's done really well?
I can see that, but the thing is, thinking about Tim with his photograph, maybe that's the point. That
I haven't got the time. I
was just thinking maybe people don't want to be reminded that they're getting a bit older.
No, I tell you what I'd love. I'd love a golf course, a great golf with a great leisure centre attached, and but actually talking to each other and working, because there's a lot of old. I love golf, but if I was playing around a golf, I might sneak and do some recovery work in the gym or whatever. I've never seen them joined up very well.
I've actually worked with a couple as a consultant, and it's always the same. Even when you get spa and fitness, you've got these competing logics sometimes, and that's a really hard territory to navigate.
Hotels try to do it. I worked for Marriott for a long while. Hotels try to do it, but they always work in silos. So you have a golf team, a leisure team. I mean, they've got a little bit better as costs have become really important. I mean, back in my day, you could never be the leisure director and the golf director. You just weren't allowed to, point blank, really adamant they weren't doing it. Now, because of costs, all the hotels and country clubs have a director of golf and leisure. That's how it is now. But they've done it for the wrong reasons. It should have always been the case. But there are some that try. But you're right. I think that's the sort of thing, isn't it? Integrating those the different sports and the different. I mean, if you go to America, they have athletics clubs, don't they? Where they are pretty much everything from the basketball to the tennis to the golf to the football to the whatever. It's all in one place. But I guess costs are a little bit easier to manage over there in that sense that things are bigger. I mean, I don't think you stick one of those athletics clubs in the UK. I don't think it survived financially, but yeah. So, well, we've kept you guys on for a long time, and I appreciate you. We've all got other things to do. So, just a couple of quick
run out of time for the stories, Glenda at Ursa, but we'll have to save that for another day.
Well, I'm only because
the public doesn't need to hear those. I don't think, Craig. That's the point.
What goes on tour stays on tour. However, let's just say I haven't got the stamina that Craig's got for partying. I'll put it out there.
He's got a big engine. He's got a big engine.
I'm happy to admit it. Yeah. But Ryan, in the spirit of what we do on this podcast, are you going to ask the guys our final question?
Absolutely. So who wants to go first? I really don't mind. But what inspires you, or who inspires you? We try and avoid family, just because we know family is always a huge inspiration to most people.
And we can see that by the pictures behind you, Craig. That is.
Yeah, that was my first answer, and I suppose but it's.
What we like to do is sort of go, okay, we know family because obviously family is really important to most people. What we try to do is just look outside and see who else maybe in the industry or books you read or people you watch. What sort of gets you going?
Craig.
Tim.
Craig. Tim. I'm thinking. Yeah, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the key part of is, like anything, is if there's a will, there's a way, and I guess there is clearly a will. I think that I'm picking up within your industry. I find that it needs to have some real key stakeholders within the industry to really drive the agenda. And find that way. And I think the industry is very safe within both your hands and other people that I've met in my very short kind of stint within the fitness industry. But so I think you are pivotal, as I mentioned in my introduction, around public health management.
Yeah.
You guys and your industry is very pivotal towards the whole public sector health management of this country and beyond, I guess. And I think so if we can't look at the gym fitness industry for support and help to get, we know what's happening with the NHS and everything like that. So I guess, all roads lead to your industry. And I guess, so I guess maybe not have answered your question, but
you haven't given a name, mate. You've got to give a name.
Well, yeah. So, both of you, I have the privilege to work with Glenda. So, in terms of, aspirationally, how the level of knowledge that she has, and Ryan, having met with you a couple of times now, you're saying you're wanting to make change within the industry, hence the podcast and all the good work you do. So
right back at you, Craig. Tim?
Nice one. Yeah, I mean, I'd reiterate that. I'd also say I'm quite inspired by a fellow Wright, Dave Wright, in my zone. His relentless pursuit of changing the industry. I mean, I don't travel in the same circles, so but I've met him, a dozen times or half dozen times or whatever, and I'm always.
We'll have to get you playing golf with him, Tim.
What's he off? Tell me.
I'll see if I can sort that out. He loves.
Is he a good golfer? Is he a good golfer?
Yeah, it's not half decent. Yeah, he's
okay.
He's obviously an Aussie as well. So
exactly. I think
the competitive nature of Tim.
I know. I get to beat him on the golf course. But anyone that challenges, the way things are supposed to be. What do you call that? Challenge. Trying to be a disruptor in the industry and to make a change. I mean,
if we're going outside of your industry, you know, there's key people. I'm trying to think off the top of my head that have been, you know, right up to Obama and people like that have got inspirational stories of where they've come from, that have challenged, you know, the way they're supposed to do things, even to people like Mother Teresa. You know, they're the people that I get really inspired by.
Does anyone actually know where Obama come from? Because I'm sure he's not.
He came from Hawaii. Hawaii? Oh, you're talking? Oh, Kenya. You're talking about his birth certificate.
They always try to get hold of his birth certificate. Don't they? Get hold of it.
But you know, people like that.
I would name drop an Oliver Patrick, Ollie P, and as well that he. I think we're going to get him on the podcast for you guys. He for me, I look at him and he brings the clinical, but he brings the ability for people to Joe Blogs to understand it. And I think that's the key part of it, is to have the science behind, but in a humorous manner. And I think Ollie P will be a great addition to the podcast.
Yeah, he's so inspiring about preventative, you know, healthcare, and I've known him since he was at Nuffield, trying to make changes to the health assessments and doing that. And he's been banging the drum for such a long time. He'll be great on your.
Yeah, he's coming on. I just want to, on behalf of Ryan and I have been very blessed to work with you guys. I learn every day from Tim and Craig. I know I share that with you, Ryan, about all I ever observe is these guys' commitment and passion to do the best thing they can do for their client, and they will stop at nothing. And I want to thank you guys on record for that. You inspire me all the time. If people are out there, whether it's, you know, our normal audience of the independent gym community, or even if it happens to be a chain out there that have listened in today, reach out to Tim and Craig. It costs you nothing, and you will definitely be guaranteed a bit of fun and humour.
And just one other point, actually, just on, because you guys work with some great brands. Do you guys go out and find these amazing digital platforms and digital products, or do people pitch to you? So if someone's got something amazing, can they get in touch and go, can you take a look? Or do you guys prefer to go out and find the likes of Headspace and True Connect and those big?
I think it's a mixture. We'd always love doing work with startups, so they're coming through and they're wanting to spend a little time from a feasibility point of view. We'll look at, you know, we get a lot of inbound traffic wanting us to support them, but it's and you know, so it's a real mixture between startups right through to well-established brands. Most of the things through word of mouth. We're about to do our new website. Look out for that. But most of it is through referrals, which is always a nice way of building the business. But yeah, we're always open for conversation and to look at your business.
Well, it's just if someone's watching this and they've got a great idea and they just need that support to drive it to the next level, it may be worth giving you guys a shout.
Yeah, we absolutely, Ryan, do some cost-effective feasibility work. We also, if people are not even ready for a bit of a deep dive, we can do more of a surface dive where we can do webinar and workshop, which are really effective. So we're always absolutely delighted to hear from people and see just the, you know, brilliant innovation that's going on. Very privileged to do that as well. Guys, brilliant. I want to just thank you. Ryan will post links to Zoas and how to reach out to you guys. He will use your LinkedIn handles, your new one, Tim.
Hashtag catfish.
Such a
Thank you so much.
We've been an hour and not squared. So well done.
Yeah, well done, YouTube. Right, awesome. Really appreciate your time today, guys. Thank you ever so much, and I'm sure we will get you on again soon and talk some more. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.